Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It's Wednesday, November 19th. It's time for Destination Health. Phone lines are open. I see we've got a call coming in already. Jump in and join us. 855-950-3835. Hit that call now button on your app. We've got the next 3 hours. If you've got anything related to health at all, a question, a comment, a topic, pick up the phone and give me a call. We've got a lot going on today. I've got some announcements, some topics I've been looking at. We've got a guest joining us at 11:30. We're going to be talking more about the new Metabolic Insights panel, the organic acids test that I've been talking about. We'll be talking to the CEO and CSO of KBMO Diagnostics. They developed the test. It's really the first of its kind, not an organic acids test. They've been around for a while, but these specific markers. We'll be talking about that. He'll join us at the bottom of the hour. We continue our daily drop through the holidays. Don't miss this. This is a great time of year to stock up. Remember, a lot of this stuff is tax deductible. The year end's coming up. Time to stock up on things. Might as well get the best deal you possibly can. Today is Gravity Weighted Blanket Day. If you've never tried a weighted blanket, you really should, especially if you sleep restless, if you have any kind of anxiety at all. Weighted blankets have been shown to really kind of calm things down in the nervous system. I love weighted blankets. The problem for me is I sleep way too hot. I have several of them because when they hit the market, I tested a bunch of them. Some really heavy. They go by weight itself. I tested a bunch and I really like them, except the room has to be about 60 degrees or less for me to use it. So when we travel, I tend to use it more because we just don't turn the heat on at night when we travel, and they work fantastic then. But at home, trying to keep it 60 degrees all year is a little difficult. So I don't use mine year round, but I do use one. We have a fantastic deal on them. And if you buy one now, you'll get the free weighted sleep mask, which, again, if you can't control the light in your environment while you're sleeping, sleep masks are nice. Now, I do use the sleep mask more often. Really, really dark is good for our sleep as well. Even down to the point of the tiny little LED lights on devices, whether they're red or blue or yellow or whatever color, even little tiny LED indicator lights can disrupt our sleep and our hormone levels. So head on over to the store, letstruck.com, grab your weighted sleep blanket and the mask, and then call me and let me know what you think about it. All right. I've got several things to talk about today. Where do I want to start? And of course, we'll get to calls. I see they're coming in, so I'll get to those pretty quickly. You know, I've said many times that you can't even trust research at all when it comes to health issues, medical issues. If you're really good at reading the studies and understanding who did the study, who paid for the study, all the researchers in the study, what are their conflicts of interest, how was the study designed, understanding the difference between absolute and relative risk, which is something they really play with in the numbers. It is a lot of work to be able to read a study and understand that it has some legitimate information in it. Sometimes even really bad studies can have some legitimate information if you know how to read them, but it's a lot of work. And I will say that this is another area where AI has made not only my life a lot easier, but it's made me much more effective and productive, because I don't have to do a lot of the digging to find not just one study, but if one study comes out and it seems like it's got an interesting conclusion, now I want to go look at all the other studies that were similar. I used to spend a lot of my time just trying to find all of the studies. Then the one thing you don't want to do is just read the study summary. That's what the media tends to do. They just use the summary. And it's just sound bites. And that's why we get all these wild headlines like eat exactly 67 red grapes a day and you'll add 12 years to your life, or whatever stupid headline they tend to come up with in these things. And when you read the summary and you think, well, it's the summary, this must be telling me what's in the study. No, it's not. It's telling you what they want you to get out of the study. And this is where all the conflicts of interest come in. Almost all these studies are paid for by big pharma or some organization funded by big pharma. And one, they can manipulate the test based on the way it's designed. That's pretty simple. But even then, if you know what you're looking for, you could find the right conclusion. But they go much, much further. They write the summary not to reflect the data that was in the survey. It is shocking how bad this is sometimes. You read the survey, and I always read the research paper, not a survey, the research paper first, like all the details. And I would try to slug my way through these because they're really dry, technical, boring reading. Then I would go read the summary. And I was shocked. I would think, oh, somebody must have mixed up the summary here because it has nothing to do with what I just read. But that's how most of these papers are written. They manipulate the testing as much as they think they can get away with, which is a lot. Then they just blatantly lie in the summary. And that's what gets published all the time. So even though I say you can't trust any of this, I still spend a lot of time reading research papers, testing papers, all of this. And AI has made it much, much easier because I can have AI read the whole study for me and summarize it correctly, as long as you have your AI trained, which is part of what I'm going to talk about today. And this wasn't a big deal. I just happened to see a post on X, and it was by Aaron Siri. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, I believe he's one of RFK Jr.'s attorneys, and he's one of the guys that fights a lot of the vaccine issues. And he had an interesting post today about a Japanese study, and I wonder if I can find the original. I remember most of the details anyway. It was a Japanese study of 100,000 people over 20 years. Now, if that's true, then that's a good study. Plenty of people, 100,000, a very long time frame, 20 years. And the conclusion, there were several details and facts in there. Let me get back to them because I have those. Oh, yeah, here it is. 20-year Japanese study, 100,000 people. People who had measles. Now, in the post, it only said measles. So, first off, I'm going to tell you that I agree with this study. I believe there is something to this, but I don't agree with the way that he posted it. And the reason I don't is because he's using the same kind of trickery, or however you want to describe it, to to make the post sound like something it really isn't, and it wasn't necessary. This is the problem we've gotten to. Everybody will do whatever they have to do to convince you that this is correct. And I don't care whether I agree with the study or I disagree. I still dig as deep as I can to get to the correct data. And this was one of those cases. So in the post, it just said kids who had measles or people who had measles. Well, it turns out in order to get the exact statistics that he posted, it really was people who had both measles and mumps. Now, that's not a huge deal. I grew up in that area. I had measles, mumps. I don't think I ever had rubella. I don't know that I ever knew anybody that had rubella. I don't even know what rubella is, but it's one of those shots you get as a kid. Even when I was a kid, we got these, or just after I was a kid. So we were starting to vaccinate. There was a couple vaccinations we got back then, but virtually every one of my friends had chickenpox, measles, mumps. Those three were very common. Rubella I'd never heard of. I had scarlet fever, which was really dangerous. So having both measles and mumps in that generation was not unusual. The problem is when you leave a detail like that out, then you're just open for somebody to say, oh, well, you're just wrong, you lied. I wish we would stop doing that on the functional side of things. Just tell the truth. Just put the facts out there and let people decide for themselves. It may not sound like a big deal, but then it gets worse. There's way more ways somebody on the pro-vaccine side could look at this post and say, well, you're just lying. So it turns out that people who had both measles and mumps, according to this study, had 20% less cardiovascular deaths. That's big. That's really big. As long as we're using absolute risk, not relative risk, and that's what I wanted to go find out. They had 50% less ovarian cancer, according to this post, not according to the study yet. I haven't read the study. I'm just reading the post. And 66% less lymphoma. And then again, this is from the post, suggesting measles conferred a survival benefit on the population. Now, I believe in things like that. I believe that our body has evolved and adapted to viruses and all kinds of other living organisms that have been on the planet longer than we have. Yes, some of them can kill us. But when they kill part of a population, that's part of the evolution. We develop defenses against these things. So I believe in the theory. There's also a theory that the more viruses you get when you're a kid, colds, flus, things like that, the more of those you get as a kid, the healthier you're going to be as an adult. Well, that is logical as well. When we're children, our immune system isn't fully formed or trained. We train it by introducing it to these viruses and bacteria, and it gets stronger and smarter over time. That's another place where I think the whole vaccine idea has gone horribly wrong. They say, oh, but the vaccine trains your immune system. Not in a natural way. Being exposed to the virus or whatever it is trains your body the natural way. Oh, but that could kill you. Well, vaccines kill people too. And usually if you die from one of these things, it's because you already had a weakened immune system. So I went and did some digging, and again, I would have never been able to do this. It would have taken me a couple of days of work on and off. And with AI, I was able to do it in about 30 minutes. And because it's so easy to do, I actually run almost everything I do through 4 different AIs. Claude is my primary, and Claude I have trained on functional medicine. Grok, Gemini, and Chat GPT. Most people are probably familiar with ChatGPT. It tends to be the one people use first and try, and it was the first one on the market. It's probably why. I run it through all four, and you get sometimes fairly significant different answers, and usually the best response that I get is from Claude. But even Claude was skeptical of this post. And the reason is that there really was only one study found that met this criteria. And the study quoted, or they didn't really quote a specific study, it just said a 20-year study on 100,000 people. Didn't give the name. I had to go dig for it. But it wasn't that hard to find because it's the only one that met this criteria. Now, part of the reason is because it was 100,000 people in 20 years. That's a huge, expensive study to do. So it was easy to find, but there were some other half-truths in the article. Nothing in the original study talked about lymphoma or ovarian cancer at all. It was about the cardiovascular risk, which is big on its own. Make that post, make that point first, that it absolutely, this research paper does show a 20% decrease in cardiovascular deaths for people who had measles and mumps, tell the truth. And then do another post, because what they did was they took results from different research and correlated it with this study. The ovarian cancer and the lymphoma numbers came from other studies, and it was a fairly accurate way of doing it. But as soon as you do it like this, you open yourself up to just say, well, you just lied, because there's nothing about that in this particular study. Now, I wish somebody, it's not going to be me, but I wish somebody would do a much deeper dive into this, because it's kind of interesting. And the reason it's relevant right now is because there is a big fight going on about measles vaccines. And when we stop vaccinating kids for measles, they will get measles. We know that measles is very contagious, spreads really easy. We used to have measles parties when I was a kid. That's not a joke. That was a thing, because the parents just wanted to get it over with. The same thing with chicken pox. They would tell you to go play with your friend that had chicken pox, and you would just, I know that's a weird way of thinking to us today, but you just kind of knew you were going to get it, just get it over with. And now we vaccinate against everything. And I believe it is destroying our immune system. And you can certainly look around and see it, not only destroying it in multiple ways, making it weaker in one sense, that it doesn't fight off these pathogens as well, making it hyperactive in another sense through diet and leaky gut. And it's no wonder why our immune systems are a wreck. We have over 100 known autoimmune conditions now, and we're finding new autoimmune conditions all the time, which means our immune system is so out of whack, it's attacking our entire body. And yet we're still susceptible, more susceptible to all of these things. I just read a research paper earlier last week about how clear it is that when you get a flu shot, we're in that time of year again, they're pushing flu shots. The flu shot's only going to cover so many variants. And it might be 3, it might be 7, that all the flu shots could be different, and what variants. And each year they decide which variant of flu or variants of flu do we think are going to be the worst, and what are we going to put into the shot this year. Even if you get the shot, yes, you'll be protected from those variants. There is some truth to that. And people say, oh, boy, the one year I got the flu shot, I got the flu so bad. And they're right. That happens. It was a different variant. The flu shot probably did protect you from the variants that were in it. But what it does is it weakens your immune system, and you are more susceptible to the variants that aren't in the shot. In many years, we get this way wrong. And then when you do get exposed to a flu virus that you didn't get a shot for, you're going to get it even worse. All of this makes total sense, except the vast majority of the population just doesn't believe this. They have been horribly brainwashed by Big Pharma. All right, I'm going to get to some calls because I've got 10 minutes or so before our guest comes on. Let's head north of the border to get started. Pat, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. Appreciate your open even with the AI.
Look, that open wouldn't exist without AI. That I am a big believer in. One, I'll just go over it again because I haven't said this in a while. The more I see of AI, the more I wish I could just make it disappear. I wish I could just make it go away. I do not think it is going to be good for human beings, but it's here. I can't make it go away. So I'm going to do everything I can to get some sort of a benefit out of it. And there are benefits, huge. I mean, the ability for me to do that much research that fast is phenomenal, and to dig down farther and farther to get to the truth. And the ability for me to analyze, we're going to talk about a complicated test today. The ability for me to analyze those so much faster now. Really, the best analogy is if you gave me a whole page full of math problems and you made me do it by hand, I can. Even some basic algebra. If you give me a calculator, I'm going to do it in 1/100th of the time, and nobody says, oh, you cheated, you used a calculator. This is no different. You can give me all these research papers to go learn from, and it's going to take me weeks. Or I can use a new tool and more accurately, not less accurately, more accurately, I can dig the data out of that. Just like if I do all the math by hand, am I more likely to make a mistake than a calculator is? A simple $2 calculator? Yeah. Calculators don't make mistakes. Not if you enter everything correctly. Now, the difference with AI, it is more challenging. It is a tool that you better learn how to use correctly. It's not like a calculator where it's right every time. It's right. In some ways, you could say it's wrong more often than it's right. But once you learn how to use that tool properly, it's incredibly powerful. So people are just going to have to get used to me saying,
frontier, and and you're right there, and that's I think what I respect about it the most, because I too struggle with it, but I'm playing around with it. I actually went and bought a computer with the Windows 11, all of it, just
Good.
Anyhow, Kevin, I wanted to talk to you about glucose levels. I know I phoned you last week. They're talking about foamy urine, and
right.
I thought, well, I'm going to go and put myself on a meter, and so I've noticed that my lows are in the basement. I think I've hit a 3.1. My highs are, after.
Can you do the math for me real quick, or do I need to get a calculator?
Yeah, geez, sorry, Kevin. I was on my way into work and calling, and I did not. It's got to be right around that 60 milligrams per deciliter, 65, 62, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was thinking it was low 60s. But so again, here's where a calculator would help us, and nobody would say we were cheating with the calculator. I can kind of do it in my head. So that's a warning sign for me. And people think, but look, he's just got good low blood sugar. No, there is a sweet spot to blood sugar. There is a bell curve, just like there is to most things. Lows are not good. What lows tell us is you are starting to lose blood sugar control. That's really what's going on. So what's happening is you're either taking in a lot of carbohydrates, or you're insulin resistant. That's why we have an or. And we have to figure out what's triggering. So what's happening is there is sugar coming from somewhere. If it's not coming from your diet, then it's coming from your liver, gluconeogenesis. Well, why is that occurring? And why is it creating such a blood sugar spike that the body has to dump so much insulin to try to counteract it that then we end up with this low number. I will tell you that I have not seen anything blood sugar wise in the 70s even in over 10 years. I very seldom get to the 80s. I tend to spend my time 90 to 110, really tight range. The only thing that'll get it out of that is alcohol. 2 glasses of wine and
I've been
drop into the high 70s.
I've been really good with the alcohol, Kevin. I mean, we're talking maybe 3 or 4 beers a month, you know.
Okay. That's not going to make any huge difference here. But that is the one thing that can even take somebody with good blood sugar control and just totally whack out the numbers. It goes low, then it goes high, and it's like 36 hours of weird blood sugar numbers, you know, after a couple glasses of wine. But this is telling us that if you're not eating a high carbohydrate diet, that you are very insulin resistant still, and you are having blood sugar issues from gluconeogenesis alone. That's stress that can do that. The fight or flight response tells your liver to produce glucose quickly because glucose is a great quick shot of energy. So in a fight or flight situation, our body is designed to make glucose, and our liver is good at it. The other thing that can occur is, and this typically with somebody with good blood sugar control, we don't even see this, but when you have poor blood sugar control and high insulin resistance, even the sometimes small amounts of gluconeogenesis that occur from protein intake. If we're not eating carbohydrates, there's only 2 other options. That's fat and protein, which is what carnivore and keto diets are based on. But when I see somebody who is responding that way to just protein intake alone, and they're still kind of out of whack with blood sugar, you need to increase the fat. That's the only macronutrient that will not spike insulin and blood sugar. Blood sugar and insulin the other way around.
Yeah.
It's the only one that won't. So that's why ketogenic diets are focused on fat. What people don't understand is carnivore should be keto. But there are people who are taking in too much protein. We've put this huge emphasis on protein, and I see people eating a carnivore diet and protein shakes and protein bars. Horrible idea.
No.
One, the protein shakes and bars are just garbage. Right, that's just garbage. And we get plenty of protein in a carnivore diet. We can get plenty of protein in the standard American diet. Protein is not hard to get.
Do you think the adrenal glands have anything to do with too much protein?
No, not protein itself. The adrenal glands are that whole, what we call the HPA axis. It's all of these glands and hormones responding. There's a whole cascade. That is part of the stress response, absolutely. And it is the stress response, the stress hormones that are triggering the liver to produce glucose. Because again, stress is fight or flight. That's our body saying, look, there's a life-threatening situation happening here, even though it's only rush hour traffic in Atlanta. You're probably not going to die from that, but our body feels like it is. And that's why we're all so wiped out. We tend to call it adrenal fatigue, which isn't correct, but gives you the picture. We're just in fight or flight mode so often, our whole system's just exhausted.
Yeah, I've made an appointment to see a doctor, obviously Western medicine, because I want to see about getting a prescription to get the continuous glucose monitor. I just don't want them to pull the CDL but I just noticed that it's when I sleep, it'll drop. But,
let me cut to the chase. I've got a guest I've got to get on.
Yeah.
Are there any other options for you in Canada to get a glucose monitor without going to a doctor?
I bought it over the counter, yes.
Oh, what you said you needed a prescription?
Well, because it's almost $100 a pop every time you go in to get one.
Well, they're not cheap. Oh, because insurance will pay for it if it's prescribed.
Correct.
I don't know that I'd put my CDL at risk for that. I'd pay for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll just get the blood work
look,
done.
Here's
and see where
the other thing. These meters are good for 2 weeks. Wear one for 2 weeks. You learn a lot in 2 weeks. Take a break and put what you learned into place. You're going to learn what triggers the sugar spikes, and then use that information. And maybe in another month, go back and get another meter. You don't need to wear these things long term.
I just find it so interesting.
Oh, it is, but it's not very interesting to know what they might do to your CDL when your doctor prescribes you a CGM. I would just avoid that.
Okay, what about taking glucose pills to see if it levels out, like say when I'm loading or unloading?
Hi, I'm Kevin Rutherford. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe or leave a comment below. It really helps us get the show out to more people. If you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, you can sign up with the link below.